yeah, MadBrad's Little Mayhem on your Thursday night. Welcome to the show. You just heard a little Deadly Blessing. Classic stuff, Deliver Us From Evil. Kick things off with some Chicago-style metal. Divinity Compromised, A World Torn Apart. And speaking of Chicago-style metal, we've got the Count, Bill Jannusch from the mighty Witchcross, coming on right around 7:30 tonight, and we'll be talking to him. He's got a lot of new news for you, a lot of good stuff going on, busy, and new music coming your way, and shows and all that good stuff. And we're gonna find out what's going on with Bill, man. We're gonna hang out with Bill for a while, and you guys listening, I appreciate you tuning in. If you're not familiar how the chat room works and you want to chat or ask Bill questions, very simple. Top of the website says chat room. Click that on, and it'll open up the chat room. It says profile on the right upper corner of the chat room itself, in the chat box. Hit profile, create a username and a password. Come on in and join the fun. We got No False Metal hanging out. He's already working me over, man. And I see a Josh 1973 hanging out, and some anonymous users hanging out. Yeah, come on in, man. Join the fun. It's going to be very, very good interview, and I'm looking forward to this new Witchcross stuff. And he's got a lot to talk about, so we've got a lot of ground to cover. A lot of good stuff going on. You guys check out War God's show last night. Absolutely kick-ass. Absolutely. The band Ruthless, their new material, sounding great. Can't wait to see those guys. It's all good. So speaking of Chicago metal, I'm gonna play something else by a Chicago band. Fairly recent release by the band called The Skull on MadBrad's Metal Mayhem, SonicAsylumRadio.com. All right, MadBrad's Metal Mayhem, and we are back, and you just heard some Coroner, classic stuff there, some Anubis Gate, The Skull out of Chicago off their latest release. Really, really good release, in my opinion. Chicago metal at its finest. And speaking of Chicago metal, we've got the Count, Bill from Witchcross, live on the phone. What's up, brother?
Greetings. How you guys doing, man?
Good, good. Welcome to the show, man.
I'm very happy to be here. Thanks a lot, Brad. It's awesome to be on.
Cool, cool. So for those of you who are listening, your computers didn't blow up. I forgot to hit a switch, and that's why you had dead air for a little bit. So that was my bad. Kick my ass, chew me out, whatever you want to do, that's fine. So we got Bill from Witchcross on, good friend, great singer. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. So you guys... you got the band all hopped up and tight and sounding great. You got a new release out, huh?
Oh, yeah, thanks a lot. The new album's called Crypt to the Undead. We've really put a lot of time and effort into this album. We've been working on this for quite some time. There's a lot of new songs, but there's also some very old classics that we've been playing throughout our career on this. But we decided after doing a lot of demos over the years that, we wanted to really make this album not only like our tightest, but like also the best produced album we could possibly do. And it's been kind of hard too because I've got, over the years when I was doing Ravensthorn and Witchcross, you get to a certain production level and you have to try and, outdo that. You want to make it better. You don't want to come down a notch. So, but the amount you're spending on all this production stuff gets to be high too, because. But anyway, so we put a lot of time into trying to find the right studio and everything like that. And in the meantime, while we were going through all that, at the same time where we were working on practicing and doing shows and keeping ourselves, active on the side. But finally, we found the right studio, which was actually a studio that's run by two former bandmates of another band I was with back in the mid-'90s called Shadow Lord, and that's Chad Elliott and Joe Doer, who produced the new Witchcross album. And I just had a good feeling because I knew, that they know how to get the right sound, not only when we were playing together, but also, in the studio. And they had built their own studio in the last, probably the last decade or so, which I'd only visited once or twice. But they told me, they were like, "Hey, Bill, this studio is like top notch now, and we're really, able to get you the sound you're looking for if you're interested." And I was like, I just jumped on it. I knew that they could. And once we got in there, we were only in there last year in August. We did the whole album in a couple days, but then they took a couple months and really refined what we had laid down and really worked on every layer of it, and it just sounds so good. So it's only going to be like a couple more weeks till the CDs arrive to me, and they're going to be unleashed on my eBay, Bill Bloodwin, Count Bloodwin eBay.
Cool, cool. So, what label is it? Actually through a label, or did you self-produce this one?
No, this is from two labels working together, Metalizer and Battle Cry Records from Germany. Which, to make a long story short, right around the time when we had just come out of the studio in August with Witchcross, recording the new album, and these guys had contacted me from Battle Cry, and they wanted to release an old Ravensthorn album. And at first I wasn't really, I didn't know about releasing that particular album, and I talked a little bit to some of my former bandmates, because some of the people who played on that I hadn't seen, and other ones I had, it was like a long time ago, around 2002 when we recorded the Ravensthorn House of the Damned album, and that's the one they wanted to re-release. And so they said if I made a deal with them to re-release that they would also possibly be interested in releasing the current Witchcross album. And I was like, I didn't know who else I was going to release Witchcross's new album with. So I was like, I thought it would be a great idea to not only resurrect a good Ravensthorn album, but also bring the new Witchcross album out on a good label. So it really worked out. It was a little frustrating because some of the former members, it was a little frustrating, trying to talk to them about why I was just personally putting it out myself without a lot of permission to some of the former guys. But we worked it all out in the end and everything. I'm proud because I wanted to resurrect that old album, and also open the doorway, for Witchcross at the same time, So I don't think there's a huge difference between the two bands, which I've kind of focused more into Witchcross now because it's like, the funny thing is, not to ramble on forever, but Witchcross was my original band right out of high school, starting in about 1990, and I had focused with them for years and years, and we did our first album. We were still called Nocturnal Doom in 1991. Derek Anderson and me, he's the lead guitarist. We formed the band, and we went on. We did our first album in 1991 called Shades of Despair. And then after that, we had problems with our drummer and bassist, so we hired Roger Massey on bass and Gary Pedersoli on drums, and we decided that we didn't want to carry on the name Nocturnal Doom. We wanted to move on. And at that point, years ago, in the early 90s, not really hardly anybody knew about a band in Denmark that was two words called Witchcross. That's a lot of people make that known now about that, but nobody I knew back then knew who they were, and they had only made one album in like 1981. So, but we were only one word, Witchcross, but nobody I knew had ever heard of the other one. So we just went with it, and we've played for like another whole decade with that name. And in between, I had done other little projects with Shadow Lord, and when I was in my 20s, I wanted to play in like 4 different bands because I was a maniac for playing out live. I wanted to play like every other night, be out live on stage. I was just crazy. So I was in 3 bands at once, and I started Raven. Tony Barr, the old original drummer of Ravensthorn, and we started that in like around 2001. And as you know, between 3 albums and another decade long with that, that kept on going. So then after a while, it was just Ravensthorn and Witchcross. We're 2 bands that were going along, but right now I'm kind of just trying to focus on just Witchcross for a while, because otherwise it gets really frustrating trying to do too many things at one time. You kind of spread yourself thin. So I'm really feeling good about the new Crypt of the Undead,
cool,
Witchcross, and I really want to focus on that. We got a show February 21st at Sopranos in Griffith, Indiana. It's around 7 o'clock with a Waiting Sacrifice, Apophis, and Space Gun. So hopefully anybody from around this area or the Chicago area can come join us. That would be awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you hit on the fact that you have been around the scene for a long time. You've been, and you're going back to the 1990, and it's amazing to me, and I give you a lot of props because this is a rough area when it comes to original heavy music. I mean, in the 90s it wasn't too bad because we kind of had a metal scene that was pretty strong, but then it kind of, wavered around a little bit, but you stayed consistent, and you stayed with it, and you kept going with what you were doing, and then, like you said, you had 2 bands going. You had the Ravensthorn band going, which did quite well, and Witchcross, of course. The old school people like myself, know about. I think for a lot of people, Witchcross is something new because it's really, the name has really gotten out there lately. And you've been working, I could tell you've been working really hard, Bill, on promoting this, and I love that because...
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
It is weird because it seems new to a lot of people because during the time in the early, I'd say right when it turned from the late 90s into the early 2000s, we kind of slowed down a little bit with Witchcross. We made an album in 2008 called Innocence and Evil, which it was okay at the time, but I still, compared to the new album, I'd say night and day. The new album is 100% better than anything we've ever done because we took a lot more time on it, and we also, we knew that the production, when we heard what Chad and Joe could do, we knew it was so much better of production that not only did we do all our new songs But we decided to like do 3 or 4 of the old stuff, you know, like 2 songs from the second album and 2 songs from the first album, and we even did a song that was like from when we were in Nocturnal Doom and redid them and added them to the 8 or 9 new songs, and you know that it ended up being 13 songs on the album, which this album is ridiculously long. It's like it broke the meter at over an hour, and so I forget after an hour, I don't even remember how much longer it is after that. But I mean, there's tunes on there. We as you know, we're really old school kind of Doom, but we also put like a power metal edge to it.
Right.
But there's some songs that are just, you know, grinding on for like 8 or 9 minutes at a time, you know. But it's like we got that really, we're very, very inspired by that early 70s sound, but at the same time we try to give it that, like that slightly thrash metal guitar sound mixed in to give it that crunch.
Right,
because I notice a lot of Doom bands that are out there now that are coming out, you know, there's some of them that are just like buried in bass, you know. I think that's like a St. Vitus influence where they're just buried in bass and stuff like that, but we're trying to give it like that, like a more modern crunch, but still have that real, you know, kind of psychedelic bluesy solo edge to it, but with the real heavy Sabbath and Coven influence in there.
Right, right. What's the current lineup of the band right now?
Okay, with Witchcross, it's always been the same, actually. We've never changed. It's been Derek Anderson, lead guitar, of course, me, lead vocals, Roger Massey, bass, and Gary Tedder, solely drums. But, like in Ravenstorm, we were changing guys like, it was like crazy how many people we were, you know, going through.
Right, right.
I think that's another reason why I kind of, you know, took a break from that, because we had gotten to a point at the end of 2013 where it was just kind of, we had switched members again, and I just was like, I didn't feel like, you know, because Witchcross was, you know, hot with this new material. We were really going good, and I didn't want to take away from the power that I felt and the unity I felt with the band of Witchcross. You know, I didn't want to take away from that to start building yet another Ravenstorm lineup, which that could happen later someday.
Right.
But right now, I'm just like really heavy with Witchcross. We're practicing. We're booking shows, and the albums are coming in within a couple weeks. I'm going to have them ready to unleash.
Awesome, awesome. I might add now, previous to you guys doing this album, I saw you at J.J. Kelly's, and for those of you that haven't seen Witchcross live, I got to tell you, you guys were phenomenal.
Thanks,
you brought a real power to that stage, and it was just nice and heavy, and you know, it was good. And we have a mutual friend too that we talk about a lot here on the station as well, and that would be Bob Mitchell. And yeah, he said
I just talked to him about a few days ago. Actually, he was the original singer of Attacker, who was legendary on Metal Blade Records in the early '80s, and he's also currently singing with Mind Assassin.
Right.
It's a fantastic band.
Right.
And he also does another act called Old School as well, where me and him are good buddies. We actually met back when I was with Ravenstorm. We did a Germany trip back in 2005 where we played 3 dates in Germany. Actually, we only played 2 of the dates. The last date just kind of fizzled out. It wasn't really like as big as, there was 2 festival dates, and it was like a small club date, and it was insane. You know how when we got out there, it was just like completely insane. It's like entering another world where it's still 1983, and you know everybody's it seems like everyone in the country's into metal.
Right.
Whether they're kids or they're adults or they're old or whatever, everyone's into metal, and it's like the whole country just seems like it's like one big metal fest. And anyway, we were playing the second night, and my old manager Jerry Parsley, he introduced me to you know, we got started talking, and everything went good, and ever since then I've been keeping in touch with Bob. Yeah,
he's a good dude, man. We call him the mayor of Sonic Asylum Radio. He's the mayor of our station, and we'll be talking to him in the near future, I'm sure, because he's got a lot going on. Let's play a tune, man. Let's throw a tune up.
Hey, while you mentioned, before, not to cut you off, but while you mentioned Bob, I'm going to interject something. This is something I wasn't going to talk about, but I'm going to throw it in there for like 1 second.
Okay.
There was a couple unreleased Ravensthorn rare demos that were floating around. That actually I wrote the music on all of them, but it was stuff that wasn't going to be released at all. But recently, Bob Mitchell, with his Mind Assassin project, they had some problems with their guitar player had passed away.
Right.
And they wanted to dedicate their whole album, which is only a mini album now because they didn't get the whole thing all the way finished. But they decided to unleash this mini album on one of those German labels. I don't think it's the same as Battle Cry. It might be Battle Cry. I'm not sure. I know it's incognito with Battle Cry and some other German labels. They've been kind of getting together lately. But anyway, so he had asked me to put a few of those unreleased demos onto this EP as a double split EP. So that's actually going to be coming out too.
Really?
I had no idea about doing that, but they said unless he had another band to do the split EP with, then he probably wouldn't be able to put it out. But so I couldn't turn that down. I was like, why not put those, a couple of those demos out?
Absolutely.
There would be a few songs that were going to be on our new album, but it never transpired. So I was like, why not just put those on the mini album with Mind Assassin too? So
wow, that's
anyway. This one you're about to play is from the new Witchcross Crypt of the Undead, right?
Yes, sir.
And that would be Curse of the Werewolf.
You got it, buddy.
Awesome.
What's
Thanks everybody for listening. I'm still going to be here when we get back from this song.
Oh yeah, we're going to drag your ass back on the air. We ain't done with you yet.
I'm just sitting in my coffin right now.
Yeah, we'll be back with Bill here shortly. I'll say the count. If you guys got any questions or anything, feel free to post them in the chat room. This is Curse of the Werewolf off your upcoming release. It should be in your hands in a couple weeks. And can't wait to see you guys play live. And I'm going to make a point of getting to your next show if possible, even if I got to hitchhike. Yeah, so let's check this out. Curse of the Werewolf, MadBrad's Metal Mayhem, Sonic Asylum Radio. We'll be back with Bill in a minute. All right, MadBrad's Metal Mayhem here at Sonic Asylum Radio, and that was "Curse of the Werewolf" by the upcoming new release.
Yeah, the new album's called "Crypt of the Undead." The thing about this album is awesome. It's not just stuck in one genre. I mean, we call ourselves a doom band, but I wouldn't say you could say that actually that we're just doom. I mean, we play thrash, we do some softer melodic stuff, and then actually a lot of shit that we do is really thrashy. And we also have a lot of doom, and we have some old stuff that sounds like vintage, kind of 70s psychedelic, like heavy, like Coven influence, but then we go into like a real heavy kind of, like a thrash song, and then we'll go into something mellower. So it's all over the board, really.
Right.
Trying to keep a variety through the album. Like when we were laying out the track list, we're just like, let's keep it moving along. Let's, not be stuck in one rut for too long. Let's do a slow grinding one, and then have some stuff that's more melodic, and then a fast heavy one. I always like to try and keep a good, like at least 3 or 4 really faster, heavier ones to keep it all exciting and moving along.
Sure. Do you know, we've got a listener named Josh. It goes under Josh 19.
Oh, yeah, I know him. He's from one of my good Facebook friends, and he's a really cool dude. He's a huge Coven fan, and I just wanted to give a shout-out to Joshua out there, man. It's great. Thanks for, entering the chat room. I would do the chat room myself tonight, but it's hard enough talking at the same time, let alone trying to do that.
Right. Killer.
But hey, man, it's awesome to hear. Thanks, Josh, for logging in. He's one of my good buddies that's a huge Coven. We're both huge Coven fans, and if Jinx or anybody from Coven is out there listening, I just want to say hails to you too, and I love you guys. And huge influence, not only our Coven and influence, but I mean, it's like a religion to me. I've been collecting all her merchandise and all her magical items and jewelry and sigils and witchcraft items for years. That's a huge fascination with me. A lot of people give me, a lot of drama about my beliefs and everything, but I've always been proud to to consider myself a Satanist, and but I don't believe in committing acts of violence or anything like that. I just do a lot of studying and reading and quiet solitary practitioner. So
right, absolutely.
I don't try to force my beliefs on anybody else, but that's about it. I collect a lot of rare items, and I do my own little rituals and stuff like that, but that's about it.
Yeah.
It gives me a lot of influence with my lyrics and my story writing too. So
yeah, and you go very deep into like magical horror, fantasy type stuff at times, which is really cool.
Well, actually, as a teenager growing up, going to school, my best classes were creative writing and speech and everything like that. I was really into that. I was like in the honors classes, like the head of my class. But like some of my other classes, I was like, just barely scooting by. But I was always like really interested in writing and art and all that stuff. And I used a lot of my beliefs and a lot of my like watching a lot of the horror movies. And I've been a big horror novel reader all my life. And when I put all that stuff together, it gives me a lot of ideas. I like to make the songs like stories, and I like everything to be involved with some sort of horror theme. That hasn't been easy either, because over the years, the Witchcross guys, that's why I think I'm still so much with those guys, Derek and Gary and Roger, which I want to give them another shout out and say hello out there. We're jamming tomorrow night, but I just want to say hello to them. But those guys have always been right with me with the horror theme. That's why I'm still 100% with them. But some of the, other members over the years kind of, wanted me to kind of veer away from that. And I kept my firm feet in the ground like a frickin' solid steel machine. I was like, I'm not changing. I'm not bending. I don't mean to sound like I'm being, mean or anything to any of those guys, but I just wanted to keep my horror theme going the whole time,
Right, right. I got a question for you out of the chat room. That's why I laughed a minute ago. This is classic, man. No False Metal, who was on the island of Trinidad. He's listening tonight. He's a regular on the...
Wow, hello, man. How you doing out there?
Yeah, yeah. He knows his shit, too. But he doesn't know this. He's got a question that he doesn't know the answer to, so he wants me to ask you. Ask him if he knows any spells for getting hot chicks.
Oh my God! I'm not going to answer. Well, I'm not going to answer that one because it's not something simple that I could just, say. That's kind of. I mean, I don't want to get into that whole.
Right.
Area.
No, I know. I just thought.
It's funny and interesting, but I want to stay focused on the music on this one. But I'd say if you want to learn spells or anything like that, there's plenty of books out there. Just keep on studying. That's what I do. But I don't really have time to go into a whole, methodology of doing that right now. But it is cool, and I'm flattered that you would ask me, but thank you.
Right. We've got Gary from the band Shadow Killer out of California hanging out, and Metal War God just jumped in the chat room up there. And,
wow, we're getting a lot of listeners.
Oh, yeah. They're hanging out, man.
I just want to say hails to them guys out there, too, and thanks for tuning in.
Right, absolutely. So yeah, we get a great group of people hanging out and tuning in and listening, and it's a lot of fun, man. And we've got maybe some people in the chat room that aren't familiar with Witchcross as well as Ravensthorn. I think Ravensthorn kind of made a little bit of a name more so than Witchcross at one point. But you do have Facebook pages. They can find Witchcross on Facebook. Do you have any?
Yeah, if you do look up Witchcross on Facebook, that's us. Make sure you type in Witchcross as one word, and then in parentheses put U.S.Doom metal. That would be us.
Right.
If you type the two-word name Witchcross, you'll bring up the old Danish band, which has nothing to do with us. But we're one word, Witchcross, and then U.S.Doom metal.
Right. We got a compliment from No False Metal. He says the new stuff sounds great.
Oh, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, we put a lot more time into. I think our first two albums, we kind of rushed it. This is really funny. I'll go back into a really old story, but this is when we did our first Witchcross album in 1992, going into '93. A buddy of mine that I went to high school with named Matt Olson was actually the producer on that. And the funny thing is how the whole thing happened. He was taking a class at Governor State College, a studio production class. And anyway, he had they gave him a key to, use the studio night or day. I don't think they'll do any more of that stuff these days, but it was back in a more innocent time, I would say. Anyway, so he invites us there in the middle of the night, like the whole college is empty, but he's got this 24-access key to get in and record so he can practice for this big assembly that they have. They had these big assemblies where they would have to record these sound effect composures and play it to the whole crowd. But anyway, he snuck us in and we recorded our whole set in a matter of hours, and then we dubbed over all the guitars, added the second vocals, all in one night. And that album, needless to say, it's decent. I mean, if you hear any of the really old Witchcross songs that are on YouTube, like the Golem or Bad Trip, those are the old versions. That's actually from that first album in '93.
Right,
so,
right.
But that doesn't compare at all to the new album. Like you just heard, Curse of the Werewolf is from the new album. That's we put a lot of time and effort, and Chad Elliott and Joe Dewar, who produced and engineered that, they put a lot of time, above and beyond, what they would normally do with a lot of the other bands that they record. They put a lot of time and effort into just getting everything layered right and getting everything sounding good. We actually, every person in the band, we were isolated, except for the guitarist and bassist, and them guys. They had all their instruments in separate rooms with glass windows and stuff like that.
Right.
Isolating, and I'm in a glass isolation booth myself. It looks like a closet, but it's just glass windows, and we're all jamming live. We did the whole thing live at first, and just played it like a live set. But then later we went back in there and added in all the other parts, and then took away other parts that were. And by the time we finished the whole thing, I had done like 3 vocal tracks for the whole album, and there's like 2 rhythm guitars and a lead track and all that stuff all done within like about 48 hours. But then they took about a couple months to really refine the mix.
Right.
And then by the way, there's one other person I need to mention. Just to say thanks if they're listening, is Saj Menchel, who goes by the Saj Machine. He's from Germany, from Mighty Monster Records, and Bernard Kriegmeier from Battle Cry. Those 2 guys are really have gone out of their way to help the band and get us on the label, Metalizer and Battle Cry. And Saj did like the final remaster for both the new Witchcross and the Ravensthorn re-release, House of the Damned, and he took a good mix and like pushed it over the limit to where it's just fantastic now when you finally hear the final version.
Right. Josh has got a question for you. It's a good question because those of you that are listening and might not be familiar with your show, you put on quite a production, and the question is, the blood you use on stage, do you make it or do you buy it from a store?
For years I made my own. Well, I do both. It all depends on what I have, actually. But most of the time I've used Caro syrup and food coloring, which was an old thing that I always discovered, because a lot of people know I'm a many years avid Kiss fanatic too. Which between all the more demonic bands like Sabbath and Coven that have influenced me over the years, I've been a huge Kiss fan since I was old enough to walk. That was the first thing I think I told my mom when I first spoke was, I said, Gene Simmons, Mom! Gene Simmons! I think that was one of the first things I heard. And then after that, it was like the rest of my life. When we first started the band, my first band of, Nocturnal Doom, when we first started playing, I had already decided that I wanted to do the horror thing. I was already wearing the cape and the makeup at like 15 years old. And I've never stopped. I just made it. I think I've just got it worse over the years, just going more for a darker and more horrific stage show every year since then. And right now, it's really, we still kept it all the way. We got the fog, the blood. I still do the makeup. The other guys mostly just dress in black, and they leave that stuff more up to me. But they focus on the music, and I just focus on the horror show and my vocals, of course.
Right. Cool. I do want to send a shout out to Dave Orkin, who is not in the chat tonight, but he is listening out on the East Coast, and he plays in the band Flesh Engine. So he's tuned in tonight. Sent me a little message, and let's check out another song off this new release.
That would be great. Could you put on Dawn of Eternal Night?
Absolutely.
This song, I just want to tell you guys, this song was originally performed like the old version. This is actually a brand new version that we just did last summer live, in the studio, and then we did just like the same way we did everything else, and then dubbed in all the other tracks and overdubbed everything else. But anyway, the thing about it is it originated from the Nocturnal Doom days. The earliest version of that was done in like 1990, and that was a totally different version, and it's come a long way since then. But this song is probably one of the doomiest and most absolutely horrific Doom songs that we've ever done. It's kind of a long one too, but it's, without further ado, I just want to once again say thanks to everyone for tuning in, and I'll be back after this song with Brad, and hails Brad for having me on. Thank you, man.
All right, we'll be right back. Let's check this out. Dawn of... Yeah. I'm MadBrad's Metal Mayhem, Sonic Asylum Radio. We'll be right back.
steel cry, pillows fall from low. Round the fire, hooded figures chant from the ancient scroll, the proclamation of scorn. The chant
go. All right, MadBrad's Metal Mayhem, and me and Bill are chatting away off the air. You just heard Dawn of the Eternal
Night.
Yeah, absolutely. Kick ass, dude.
Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, False Metal says, God, this is one of the bands I have a hard time with the name. Iscariot.
I've heard them before.
Yeah. Josh says, damn good guitarist. Yeah, apparently digging the new stuff, and I think it sounds great. Yeah, you've been on this road, dude, since I've known you. We've known each other for quite a while. And like I said, I give you all the props in the world because of the road you have been down. A lot of guys would just say, fuck this shit, I'm done. But you just keep punching away and coming back, and it gets better every time. And that's what I'm very impressed by.
You know what I do? The way I look at it, I don't always look at, when I'm writing or we're working with whoever on writing a new album, I don't always look at it like this is a Ravensthorn or this is a Witchcross album or whatever. I just look at what's the best possible album, that's going to sound the best. And it just came to the point where the friendship level of Witchcross is just so much better than any band I've worked with. They're like my oldest buddies, and we just get along so good. Even at the time where things kind of seemed like they were dwindling down, in the late 90s, because I'd have to say a lot of the grunge scene kind of, and the clubs, some of the clubs going down at that point, and different things kind of weighed the band down, and, everybody was kind of slowly drifting into different directions. But now that we're back together as a unified, solid force, it's like we are getting along better than ever, and you could feel a power at the practices and at the shows and everything. But the main thing I'm just getting around to is that, the whole thing is just is like a process, like, whatever band I was in throughout the years, I just kind of looked at, like, I still had my same vision, of trying to create a similar sounding approach, no matter if I was in one band or the other. And that's why the band sounds similar, It's the songwriting and the singing just has a similar feel, even though Witchcross is more doomier. But I never really wanted to be split into different bands. I just wanted to keep moving forward and doing my music, But then it just got to the point where Ravensthorn was doing a little better at one point. But right now, I'm glad I'm back with Witchcross because it feels more natural, and it's like, that's where I wanted to be all along. I never really wanted to be away from them. I'm back with them, and I'm glad. It just feels totally
right.
We're totally into the stage show and the songwriting and everything. Just, it's like we don't even really have to discuss what we want to do. We go to the practice, and sometimes Derek will make up a riff on the spot, and and I'll know exactly. I just feel like a feeling of how I want to sing, and he always seems to like anything of what I do. It's like we don't get in arguments like some of the other projects I've done with other bands. We got in arguments over which direction we're going to go. Are we going to stay horror? Or some people wanted to go away from the horror, but in Witchcross, everybody knows it's a horror band, and we're going to stay horror forever. We're not changing anything, and we have our beliefs.
Yeah, you got a good group of guys there. Very outgoing, very down to earth. And I think that makes a huge, to have exactly what you say, have the same focus, know where you're wanting to go with it, is a huge thing with a band because.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't have that, I mean, you could be like on top of the world popularity wise. You could be out there doing a tour, and if some guy just flakes out and decides to leave. That's how I kind of felt. Everybody in Ravensthorn was great, and I loved all the guys, and I still miss them. I still like to, and there may be new Ravensthorn in the future. I don't know what the future will hold, but it's like some people had different musical interests, and everybody, I don't criticize any of them for that, but it's like in Witchcross, we all have the same musical interest, and, we all love what we're doing together, and it's feeling better than ever. That's all I got to say.
Right. It's definitely a great fit of guys on stage is the best way I could put it. You guys seem to all be walking in the same set of shoes, and that's so important.
Like a bunch of psychotic biker guys. Not me. I'm more like a horrific theater actor that sings, and the other guys are more like some crazy freaking wild biker guys in the band.
Right. But they're good guys, man. They really are. Hey, I do want to say, speaking of Ravensthorn, I know we wanted to focus mostly on Witchcross tonight, but you did re-release, correct?
Yes, the re-release of Ravensthorn is currently on sale all over eBay, not only on my site, but on several sites. But on my site, my eBay site is Count Bloodwind. That's the name of my eBay site.
Right.
And you could just go to eBay, or else the easiest way to find it is just go down my Facebook wall. That's William Jannusch, Jannusch. That's most of the people that are probably listening right now are probably already, know my Facebook site. And if you scroll down there somewhere along the lines, you'll find my eBay link. And there's currently, copies of House of the Damned from Ravensthorn on sale on my eBay. But anyway, like I said, thanks to Bernard Kreigmeyer and mostly Sash Menschel from Germany, resurrecting that and bringing it back to, to the masses. That's really opened the door not only for Ravensthorn but for Witchcross. But anyway, that was the first Ravensthorn album, even though it's a re-release now. But
right.
That was originally done in 2002 when the band first formed. And Greg Vertine was the lead guitarist, Mario Sanchez was the bassist, and Tony Barr were on drums. And anyway, Greg Vertine really put in a lot of work writing all the, the music for that, and I wrote all the lyrics. And it just we kind of came together because Tony and I at the time were talking about putting together like some sort of more evil kind of King Diamond style band. And it was, like I said, at the point where Witchcross was kind of on a little break, kind of, you'd say. We've done a lot of shows and we've done a lot of recording, and we were kind of taking a little break because my drummer had just had his kids at that time. They're practically grown up now. But anyway, it was kind of slowing down for a short period there, not too long. But and then Tony and me at the time had decided we wanted to put together a band that was kind of like a King Diamond, but still slightly Sabbath influenced and all that. And he had been talking to different guitar players, and he mentioned that he had met this guy Greg Vertine, and so we went down to the studio out on the north side of Chicago, and we started jamming with him, and it just was like fire. The riffs he was igniting, it was like out of control stuff. And we had another bassist named Jim at the time who didn't stay in the band too long because, once we talked about the horror direction, yet again, he had another person that didn't like that direction. Well, he had left, and Tony had been friends with Mario for years. They had been in several bands together, so Mario Sanchez was brought in, and everything was great. And that was we did 2 albums in a row, but that was the first one, House of the Damned, though.
Right. Cool. Now, let me ask you something real quick, too, on all your releases. If you hear a noise in the background, like a rocket ship taking off, that's my computer. For some reason, it's blowing up tonight. It's all your fault, Bill. All your horror and shit scared it to death. But anyway, now, on any of this new stuff that they're reissuing, do you know if anybody's going to do vinyl pressings on it?
Well, we talked about it, but right now I can't say 100%, but I will be pursuing that avenue, somewhere down the line with the Witchcross one. I don't think the Ravensthorn one will be, because I've kind of had a lot of, issues with, different things with that already. But right now it seems like all the former, the members that, from that lineup are kind of peaceful with the whole thing. I think the bottom of the line thing was I think that they might have been a little angry at first that I didn't consult them at first, but when the issue with the label thing came up, it was like one of those now or never things. You have to make a decision, and if I waited too long to think about it and discuss it, it might have just slipped right through my fingers, which then I wouldn't even have a deal with the Witchcross album right now either. So I had to make a decision. But over the time that I've kind of talked to people, it seems like everybody is, you know, overall is kind of glad that the album is still alive and out there. So that's a kind of a good thing. I'm glad. I'm proud that it's still out there. Because like the second and third Ravensthorn albums, which were called Hauntings and Possessions, and the third one was Horrors of the Black Mass, those were more released on a more major level on Hellion Records in Germany. And it seems like everybody out there and around the world, you know, has seen those two albums, but nobody has seen House of the Damned.
Right.
And so at first, House of the Damned was kind of like an underground thing that we put out. And like when we sent that to Hellion, you know, they were like, oh, they thought of it, it was just like a demo, and they wanted us to put out the second album. So we quickly recorded the second album, gave it to them, and later on they put a double vinyl of the second album and the first album, which is out there. It's called Haunted House of the Possessed.
Right.
And it's still out there on eBay. It has like the second album, Hauntings and Possessions, and the first original version of House of the Damned as a double-colored vinyl record that's out there. If you seek it out, you can find that.
Yeah, I've seen a couple. Most of them are overseas. And
almost all of it, yeah.
Yeah, but hey, you know what? If you want it bad enough, you got to get it, right?
And those guys don't feel scared to order from there, because I've ordered stuff from there, and it comes really quick. I mean, it takes a few weeks, but it comes really secure, and everything comes. It looks really good. It's worth it, you know.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. So you've got the Ravensthorn's been reissued. You got the new Witchcross coming out, and you got.
The only thing I'm waiting for is, you know, the shipping time. When you send a huge crate, which I've got like 500 CDs of the new Witchcross album coming to my house, and like those huge, you know, packages like that, it takes almost a month to get here. And he's Sash Menschel, the Sash Machine, and Bernard Kreitmeyer both informed me that the package has already been sent. So I'd say by the end of February we'll be unleashing those on eBay for sure.
Awesome.
And these guys, man, I've got to hand it to them guys. They put out the best quality booklets and everything. Like, you know, I gave them a whole slew of not only a whole slew of lyrics and photos and all kinds of archive stuff and you know, they just pieced it together, and we worked on it, you know, through email. We, you know, back and forth. And they when they showed me the final design for the booklet, I was just blown away. You know, because at first I was worried. I also drew the album cover on the new Witchcross, and I was, you know, I knew the drawing looked decent, but I was kind of thinking, you know, after the House of the Damned thing, we had used a traditional oil painting.
Right.
It was a classic from years ago, and I didn't really want to do that again. I wanted to use something that I personally drew myself, but I wanted it to look right. So, you know, they kind of put like a little polish on it, so to speak, and it just. Then it has a lot of photos and lyrics. It has stage shots and blood shots and everything. It's just like a really neat little booklet that comes in there.
Cool, cool. So for those people that are listening, the best way to get Witchcross or Ravensthorn would mainly be to get a hold of you, correct?
I would say just go on eBay or go on my Facebook, William Jannusch Facebook, or go on Witchcross U.S.Doom Metal on Facebook. Or just go to eBay and look up Count Bloodwind and visit my page. But all these other sites have my page link for eBay on numerous times. So
Right. Do you guys have shirts and all that good stuff still?
Right now, with the whole price of getting the album done, actually our bassist has his own T-shirt press, and he's been making his own. But I don't know what we're doing in that market yet. Right now, we're just focusing on, you know, getting the CD back, because it's kind of pricey with all that going on. But the next thing we are going to do is get the shirts going and stuff. But I was thinking maybe having him do them, or else we might also, you know, seek another avenue for that.
Right. So you got a show coming up at Sopranos. You want to run that by us one more time, too?
Yeah, February 21st at Sopranos in Griffith, Indiana, with Awaiting Sacrifice, Apophis, Space Gun, and Witchcross is headlining. We're doing a full show. with all the theatrics and everything, and we're playing almost a lot of the new album, and we're also going to, probably throw a little Black Sabbath at you. For people who don't know, throughout the years, I've always been a huge Sabbath fan too, and we used to always, we know over 40 Sabbath songs, and there was periods where we had done Sabbath tribute shows too, where we played the whole concert of Sabbath, and but we're only throwing in a few Sabbath numbers at this show. We're mostly going to focus on all our new material, but there's certain numbers that people always want to hear. So
absolutely.
But one thing else I'd like to mention about the new Witchcross Crypt of the Undead album is that, like I mentioned before, how I collected the custom sigils that Jinx Dawson of Coven drew. They're like witchcraft signs that are custom drawn onto like a parchment. But
right.
Anyway, the actual CD itself, when you open up the booklet and go through everything, and then you pop the actual CD out itself in your hands, the CD itself is the Witchcross sigil that she drew, and it was, we put it into there, and then they actually put the sigil on the CD, so it's totally cool. Like when you take the CD out, the sigil is in your hand. It's like, holy shit, man, it's really
right,
cool.
Right. Let's throw one more song at him here off the new release. What would you want to play as the next song?
I would say put on Restless Spirits.
Okay.
That would be great. And then if you have time to do another one after that, maybe Taste the Blood.
Okay, we can do that. Yeah, we'll do a double shot and cover that. That'll cover that really good. Also, too, now, I do my segment every Thursday night around 9 o'clock, or in that neighborhood anyway, sometimes sooner, sometimes later. Tonight I'll probably be right around 9 o'clock. It's called Blast from the Past. And my way of, I know you're a huge, huge Coven fan.
Big time.
So,
I got like chests full of stuff and vinyl records and T-shirts and necklaces. It's crazy, man.
So what I'm going to do, just for you, Bill, around 9 o'clock when I do Blast from the Past, it's not going to be... See, I usually surprise everybody. But tonight it's not going to be a surprise because I'm going to dedicate Blast from the Past to you, and I'm going to play a double shot of Coven tonight.
Oh, thanks, man.
So that is
awesome. Also, if Jinx or anyone from Coven's out there listening, that's dedicated to you. So that's awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Now, she had a birthday recently, correct?
Yeah, that was January 13th.
Right.
The weird thing is that's the same day my mom's birthday is.
Really?
It's like really crazy, man.
That's cool. Yeah, and I gotta...
Not the same year, but the same day.
Right. But you got to be one of the biggest fans of that band that I know. I mean, I know quite a few people that are fans of the band, myself as well, but I mean, you are a diehard fan, man, and still hold...
I got the 45 records. I even got one of the only versions of Witchcraft Destroys Minds and Reads Souls on 8-track and cassette tape.
Wow.
And I've got the vinyl record signed by Jinx herself, and I've just got like a box load of all autographed CDs, but I'm not getting rid of any of them, so I don't want to have anybody emailing me. Can I get one? I mean, those are going to the grave with me. So
absolutely. Well, I want to thank you
for a long time, but
I want to thank you, Bill, for coming on tonight and spending some time with us.
It's been a lot smoother. Every time I do an interview, on one of these things, I'm not going to, lie to you. I get a little nervous at first, but it always goes great. But I'm having a blast tonight. This has been really cool, and thanks to everyone for listening, too.
Cool. Well, hang on the line. I'm going to load up these 2 tracks as we close out your interview here. And this is off the latest release, and hopefully we'll see it, let's say in a month or so. It'll be in your hands, and people can get it from you, man. And come out and see these guys live if you're going to be around the Sopranos area, or if you're in the Chicago area, you feel like making a road trip or whatever. And I'm sure you guys will be booking more shows into 2015.
It's in Griffith, Indiana, Sopranos, February 21st. And this is Count Bloodwind wishing you all a good night. And I'm a Satanic.
right, some Witchcross, double shot. Well, I almost said Ravensthorn. Double shot of Witchcross from the upcoming new release. So make sure you keep your eyes and ears open, because it will be upon you faster than you think. That's right. Curse of the Undead. Going to be a killer disc. That sounds great. I want to thank Bill for coming on the show tonight. Great time, man. Great time. A lot of fun. And we'll be talking to Bill in the near future. Get out and check these guys out. Witchcross. They'll be at Sopranos in Griffith, Indiana. You can go to the Witchcross site on Facebook or Bill's page. Go give them a like, and we'll put them on our band page as well with a link so you can check them out. And it's all good stuff, man. A lot of fun. Great band to see live. I've seen Bill many times. Great performer. Great vocalist live, too. So if you're not familiar with them, take one of those winter nights. Well, maybe by then it'll be a little bit warmer. And get your butts out there and check out Witchcross. All right, I'm going to throw some music in. If you've got anything you need to hear, hit me up here at 11 o'clock. And we got Blast from the Past just around the corner. And tonight it is dedicated to Bill, the Count, on the show tonight. Double shot of Coven, man. We're going to go back to the time machine to some classic killer stuff and play some Coven. That'll be up here around...